Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Whimsically Wicked, a reading duet. My name is Haley, and I am the whimsical half.
And my name is Daria, and I am the wicked half.
We are here to talk about a very TikTok famous book today. It was published in June of 2024. It has 273,972 ratings on Goodreads with a 4.43 rating.
You know, that's less ratings than I thought it would have.
Really?
To be honest. Because, I don't know anyone who hasn't read this.
Oh, well, I feel like I'm in the different side of book talk, but I've heard it's very popular.
Yeah, I thought this one would be, pushing 500.
Well, let's look, because how many does something like Fourth Wing have? I feel like it's going to be more, for sure. You would expect it to be more.
Yeah, it's been out for longer.
Okay, but Fourth Wing has over 2 million ratings.
Yeah.
I wonder if that... Because it was republished. Quicksilver was republished.
Yes.
In December. So maybe that's when it got super popular. I wonder if we look back in 3-4 months, if it's going to be a lot more.
Maybe, yeah, because I was I've seen a lot of content around Quicksilver.
Yeah, because I only heard of it maybe 2 months ago when one of our friends told me that she was reading it and she loved it, and we thought we might do an episode on it.
How long has this been on my TBR? Don't tell me how long this was on my TBR. This is the first book marked as read in 2025 for me. For the record.
Really?
Yeah, I haven't read any other actual books.
I guess you have been writing a lot lately.
Yeah, and then it's just been fanfic.
Fanfics, yeah, you've been reading a lot of fanfic.
I added this to my TBR on August 31st. Or I opened it for the first time on Kindle. It's been on my Kindle since August 31st, 2024.
Oh, wow.
It's definitely been on my TBR longer than that, though, because I had friends in my book Discord started reading it back then.
Okay.
And I was like, oh yeah, I'll start reading this. And then I didn't.
This one was at a really interesting time for us, too, because it's right after we finished Onyx Storm.
Yeah.
And we really struggled with Onyx Storm.
I really wish I didn't have to finish Onyx Storm.
I know. Onyx Storm had a lot of problems. I've kind of been saying that Onyx Storm was written on a deadline with editors who were not in the real conversation with Rebecca Yarros.
Yeah, someone needed to tell her no.
Yeah.
Or, even... Haley's seen... I've been dabbling in trying to write fanfic because I've been reading so much of it. And, I have a 4-foot long piece of paper with, my entire plot line. Not, nitty-gritty details, but, major points are plotted on there. Yeah. So they make cohesive sense. And, I don't overlap anything weird or nothing strange happens. And, someone needed to sit her down and be like, make a mind map of your book, please.
Yeah, so Quicksilver was kind of interesting because I think my taste in romantasy was a little bit... What word am I looking for? Tainted, I guess, going into this book, and I was really concerned because romantasy hasn't been my favorite genre for the last year. ACOTAR, I didn't really love. Crescent City, I wasn't super impressed with the last 2 books. And I had really moved towards the high fantasy genre, and so coming back to it with Onyx Storm was my first romantasy in a little bit. And I was worried. I was really worried.
Yeah.
And I think how we'll structure this, we'll do some spoiler-free reviews. Maybe some, comparisons, high-level comparisons without spoilers with Onyx Storm and the differences between the two. And then we'll head into spoilers and tell you about what we thought in depth.
Sounds good to me.
I still haven't decided on a rating for this. I feel like I need to talk about it for the next hour or so, and then I'll decide on a rating at the end of this episode.
I rated mine right after because my Goodreads pops up on my Kindle for me.
I ignored that.
Because I was like, I don't really care.
Fair.
I'm just giving the shit ratings at this point. But when I finally write my review for it, I'm sure I'll have a different rating than what's currently up.
What is it right now?
It's at 5, but I round up my 0.5s.
Okay, so you're like 4.5, 5.
Yeah.
Ooh.
But yeah, I round up because honestly, I think it's shitty to round down for a book review.
I think
Just give it the lower rating.
Goodreads just needs to add the half rating.
That too. I know
'Cause
it's
there's
like a
a-
big critique.
To me, there's a vast difference between a 3.5, a 4, a 4.5. Like, there's a huge difference between those three.
Yes. Yeah, and I know a lot of people use, I think it's called Storygraph,
Oh.
which does allow for the half ratings.
I've also heard Fable, because they also allow for the half ratings.
But like, you will drag my cold dead body away from Goodreads because I have over 1,000 books in there that I would have to transfer over manually to another platform.
So, Fable does it.
Oh.
You can, yeah, I've been kind of using both because you can do it on Fable. I think I'm struggling with change a little bit right now on Fable because I did like download them all from Goodreads and it works totally fine. So you can do that. I don't know. I think I'm struggling with change right now a little bit because I've been using both and I should just commit to one, but Fable does it.
Oh.
Yeah. It actually seems like a decent platform. I'm not going to lie.
My other problem is just Goodreads is built into my Kindle.
Right?
Amazon owns my life, and that includes...
It's built into everything. I know it's hard to change.
Yeah. Convenience is hard to give up.
Yeah, it is. It truly is. Okay, 4.5 out of 5 stars. Tell me why. What did you think of it?
Well, I had fun, which was a big step up from the last romantasy I read, which was the other book I read this year, and chose not to do the rating yet in Goodreads, so that's why...
You haven't
Quicksilver's
rated
first.
Onyx Storm yet?
No,
Oh my
because
gosh.
then I'd have to write a review for it, and I don't want to.
I did.
I know you did. I sent it to people. I was like, do you want to laugh?
Dude, we talked about it for like an hour and 40 minutes, and then afterwards I was like, I'm not done, and then I just rage reviewed on Goodreads.
We're sitting on the couch, and I could just hear her like angrily typing, and I'm like, are you writing a review right now? She's like, yeah. And then like 30 minutes later, I was like, are you still writing the review? And she's like, yeah, I'm not done yet either. And I was like, okay.
So long.
Yeah, I haven't actually read it. It was so long. I was like, there's no way. I can't.
So good.
Did anyone comment on it?
I haven't checked.
I'm checking. I want to know. Someone was like, yes. Or someone just like, get off my book.
Probably not.
Onyx Storm. Alright.
Oh, that's not what I'm...
You know what? Everyone I follow on Goodreads was not kind to this book, except for like a handful of people.
I know.
Oh, this one DNF'd. Jealous.
No, nobody has commented. It's just me over there right now.
Here, I'll like it for you.
Well, thanks.
You're welcome. It has 2 now.
Great.
Yeah, okay, I gotta stop looking at those pressing.
Okay, so you had fun with this book. Back to
fun.
Quicksilver.
I had fun. The writing was really good. It wasn't hard to follow.
It was first person, too.
It was first person, and I wasn't upset by that, and I barely noticed.
Mm-hmm. Which is big for us.
It was really big. I even have notes about that, because I was like, I'm having so much fun, and it's still in first person, and I'm not upset.
Yeah.
We can touch on why I dislike first person in this kind of book a little bit later. But I think the other thing I really liked was the characters. Like, the characters are fun. They had distinct personalities. Like, someone could be talking and you didn't have to put their name beside their text for me to know who it was.
Yeah.
And I like that.
That's fair. I agree with that. The first person didn't bother me as much as it usually does. I think that the female main character actually was well done, which I think historically in the other really big romantasy ones like ACOTAR, Fourth Wing, I haven't historically loved female main characters. I even think like Mortal Instruments, Twilight, I just don't like being in their head, and that's a lot of the reason I don't like first person in these romantasy novels. But I actually liked Saris, who is our main character. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I don't know. It was very aesthetic. Like, it knew what it was, and I think that it had a really good plot points. I don't know.
The plot wasn't too heavy either. And I don't know if that's just because it's the first book in the series, and then she's like not overloading you with like in-depth lore, 6 million questions about what's happening, and like there was a linear story happening, and not.
Yeah.
Okay, again, we jumped from Onyx Storm to this, where there was like 1,000 things happening at once, nothing had any answers, and I just had questions that I really just wanted answers to. I feel like this one was like, it was really easy to follow. There wasn't weird shit happening with everyone. Like, people weren't keeping secrets.
No.
Like, there were people keeping secrets, but like they were keeping secrets to the point where you're like, this is fucking infuriating.
Yeah. I feel like I should read a quick little, like, what is this book about? I'm just going to read the Goodreads one. Do not touch the sword. Do not turn the key. Do not open the gate. In the land of the unforgiving desert, there isn't much a girl wouldn't do for a glass of water. 24-year-old Saris Fane is good at keeping secrets. No one knows about the strange powers she possesses, or the fact that she has been picking pockets and stealing from the Undying Queen's reservoirs for as long as she can remember. But a secret is like a knot. Sooner or later it is bound to come undone. When Saris comes face to face with Death himself, she inadvertently reopens a gate between realms and is transported to a land of ice and snow. The Fae have always been the stuff of myth, of legend, of nightmares, but it turns out they're real, and Saris had landed herself right in the middle of centuries-long conflict that might just get her killed. The first of her kind to tread the frozen mountains of Evelia in over 1,000 years, Saris mistakenly binds herself to Kingfisher, a handsome Fae warrior who has secrets and nefarious agendas of his own. He will use her alchemist magic to protect his people, no matter what it costs him, or her. Death has a name. It is Kingfisher of the Aegean Gate. His past is murky, his attitude stinks, and he's the only way Saris is going to make it home. Be careful of the deals you make, dear child. The devil is in the details. NB Quicksilver contains depictions of graphic violence, adult situations, and is therefore recommended for readers 17+. For a full list of tropes and trigger warnings, please visit the author's website. Kudos to the author for including trigger warnings as well.
Yeah, and if you don't put them in your book, at least put somewhere to find them.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's the premise. It does give off very ACOTAR vibes.
It was really funny reading this because we basically read it together for
it was
a
really
large
cute.
portion of it, like sitting side by side.
Yeah.
And it would be like, oh, this is really Game of Thrones right now.
Yeah.
And then there was the Horcrux moment.
Oh yeah.
Because again, I've only been reading Harry Potter. And then, yeah, there was a lot of ACOTAR vibes. I don't know if you can escape that with Fae these days. I feel like ACOTAR, unfortunately, has the market cornered on that one. So you're going to have a really hard time doing Fae and not just giving ACOTAR vibes.
Well, that's the thing. Like, with fantasy, there's so much source material, and it's really difficult to do anything super new and original. But I actually think that is the reason that I really liked this book, is because it knew what it was, and it didn't try to, like, mess with the already created recipe. It had its recipe. It had some original aspects, but the stuff that was original was really good. And the stuff that they took from other source material and other recipes was also well done and had enough originality into it to make me feel like I was in another world. Like, there were a couple scenes there where I was like, ooh, that is right from, like, that is kind of pickpocketed right from another book, another thing, but the characters were different and distinct enough. The plot was actually different and the motivations and stuff were different that it made me feel like I was in its own story while still giving me that nostalgic feeling of other fantasy.
Yeah, I feel like I've come to the conclusion that we're just all reading and writing fanfic. With different skins.
100%.
Which is totally fine. Like, you blend whatever you want together, so long as you can make it yours. I think it is what it is.
Yeah.
And these days, like, you have things like Game of Thrones that are just so ubiquitous that you can't do something like Frozen Zombies and not be Game of Thrones.
Yeah, like, they had these kind of, like, undead vampires in the book as one of their enemies, and they were across the lake, and it was very like, this is White Walkers versus the humans. This is what it feels like.
Yeah, I think we both said like the exact same thing. Reading that scene, I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Okay. They even had a really similar hierarchical structure as White Walkers.
Yeah. What did you think about Saris and Kingfisher.
I like them. Their relationship felt fun. It wasn't too forced, and it really didn't have like a conclusion until the end of the book, and I kind of liked that we got to like play around with that one.
Yeah.
Will they, won't they? Giving pull with it, because like a lot of the times with romantic you dive in right away, you're like, oh yeah, like hey, we're doing this.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't even smut until 50% of the way into this book.
No, the tension was so good. And that's what I really don't love about romantasy is that they make, or even actually romance novels in general that I struggle with, is that there's not enough tension. I actually don't believe that the characters like each other, which was a huge thing that I struggled with in Onyx Storm. Like, I did not believe that Violet and Xaden liked each other one bit. And so I think with this one, the tension was really there. It was actual enemies to lovers. They did not like each other at the beginning. Well, at least they did not like each other at the beginning.
Yeah, they butted heads a lot. They argued a ton. Like they couldn't settle on anything ever.
I believe that they were enemies, but I always felt that tension there. Like, she did a really good job in the atmosphere with their relationship. And I do not say that often with romance books or ever.
It's not easy to achieve. You have to have a good banter, I think, is the thing. And I think a lot of authors struggle with it is, can you maintain the banter and build the tension without having them just fall into a bed together immediately?
Right.
Like how long can you draw it out?
Yeah. I love that feeling. Okay, one more thing before we go into spoilers. Something that's been showing up on my book talk, and I don't think you're on the internet that much these days, but on my side of book talk, they are talking about individual reading experiences. Which I think it's been a really interesting conversation to dive into, because some people say that they experience like actual pictures in their head when they're reading, and some people are like, I can't actually visualize what's happening. I'm just like reading the words and I just know what's happening with the descriptions. There's actually a term for it. I don't know exactly what the term is, but there's a term for it, like how much you can visualize. So I'm curious what your reading experience is.
Mine's just the words. But I think because that's the difference between how people think too. Like there's some people who think in pictures only and they don't have an internal monologue.
Yeah.
I have an internal monologue, and therefore when I read, I have an internal monologue.
Interesting. So you're not seeing the scene?
No, not unless I'm consciously trying to. Like if I'm trying to like picture it, then I can put it together fine. But like that's the one thing, like character descriptions do nothing for me because they don't have a face in my brain.
That's so interesting, because we've never talked about this before.
No.
So I visualize it. I see a scene. And for me, when I'm reading, once I get into the flow state of reading, I forget that I'm reading. Like, I'm watching a movie in my head. And I'm seeing a scene play out. So for me, character description, atmosphere, when they're describing like a mountainous zone that they're on or like a desert that they're in, that's really important for me to like actually set a scene that we're in, because I watch it happen. And then when I get into the zone, it's like the reason that I like reading is that when I get into the zone, I completely zone out of reading and I'm just watching this thing play out in my head.
Oh yeah, like if there's a heavy amount of description, I just skip it. I don't even read most descriptions in books. I almost exclusively read dialogue.
Because that's how you're picturing it.
And they always talk about what's happening. Like even if something happens in the like middle of a 30 paragraph whatever is going on,
right,
like battle, they're going to talk about it in like 2 pages anyway.
Right.
So I cut my reading time quite significantly. And I'm also dyslexic, so like large chunks of paragraphs just aren't happening. But dialogue's always so nicely parsed out that I can see it really easily. So I tend to gravitate towards almost exclusively reading dialogue and then skimming really quickly over descriptions.
That's so interesting to me, because I wonder how that impacts our enjoyment of books. Because we do like very different books. Onyx Storm was probably one of the first times where we were like both in agreement on a romance book. But romance, I find, is heavily dialogue.
Yeah.
And it's heavily like, how are you making banter go really well together? And I pay attention to banter, but a large portion of my enjoyment comes from the atmosphere and the setting that they're in and me actually watching it play out. So like for me, character descriptions are more important, and like where they're standing in a room, or like where is the bed in relation to the room. Like I paint that in my head. So when I read romance and I don't get that setting as much and it doesn't focus on it as much, I think that might be the reason I don't like it as much.
That makes sense.
Like I remember some scenes from, what is it, God of Fury, when we did like second episode or something like that on it.
Oh yeah.
With Brandon and Nico. I remember the scene where they were like by the tree, and I remember exactly how that is, but I only remember that scene because of the paint, like the picture it painted. And the most memorable pieces I have from books are scene based.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because mine are always overarching like themes or conversations,
So crazy.
or like plot. Plot is the big one for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, if it's not a very heavily like dialogue driven book, I'm probably not going to enjoy it because I just won't read it.
Yeah. And I thought that this book did a really good job of, maybe I guess both, if we both really enjoyed it.
Yeah, like it was really, I felt like I could skip things and still be knowing what's going on pretty well.
Because I think one of the things I really liked about when they were in Zilvarin, which is Ceres's home desert, and the contrast of that when they got into Yvelia, where it was like brighter colors and the sun was always shining, whereas Zilvarin kind of reminded me a lot more of like the Mistborn, like red all the time. It was darker, it was really difficult to find water, and it was like a barren wasteland almost, and I really enjoyed the contrast of the two worlds.
Yeah, so for me, my brain's like, desert, cool. Trees?
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so you just like, oh my gosh, that's crazy, dude.
Skip the rest. All I needed to know about the setting.
I'm gonna start asking everybody this question, because it's so cool, it's so interesting.
Yeah, no, it's a fun one. Because I know it came up on like TikTok or Instagram or something ages ago where people were like, how do you think?
Yeah.
And yes. Like, yeah, it's like the internal dialogue, or you think in pictures and don't have an internal monologue.
Dude, I problem solve in pictures.
Yeah, I can't. I have like lists in my head and I just talk to myself all day long.
Craziness. I also do that, but
you kind of have to.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, anyways, do you have anything else like spoiler free that you want to chat through with this?
No, I think the rest of my things here are spoilery.
Okay. Well, this is your warning. Go read the book. It's actually really good. I'm thinking at least a 4 stars for me at this point. Let's keep talking about it. But let's get into spoilers.
Yes. Simon got a whole half star.
Holy shit, that was funny. Okay, so there's the character in this book that Carrion is the comedic relief. He is the Riddick. He is the, oh my gosh, who else?
Oh, who's the shithead from? He's like the Cassian. What the fuck his name is?
Cassian from ACOTAR?
Yeah.
Yes, Cassian would be that comedic relief. He's like the lighthearted, doesn't take anything seriously. He was picture perfect.
I know. He was just a beautifully slutty boy, and I love it.
So cheesy.
Same thing I said about Riddick, too. Same reasons I like Riddick.
But, like, and I think both of those characters, because they are over-the-top comedic and, like, slutty and don't take anything seriously, no shame, but it works for these types of things. I think what needs to be, because if he was a character in, like, Brandon Sanderson's novel or something like that, he wouldn't fit. But, again, this has a recipe, and this character is needed for this recipe, and he does it so, or I guess she does it so over the top and so well. It just fits in with the dark themes in this romance.
Yeah, like I laughed out loud several times when he spoke, because it would just be like this horrible situation or all this stuff is happening, and then he would just like come out with something and I was like, what?
Yeah, because the magic system's cool too. So you have like a number of different types of creatures. You've got your fae, you have your vampires, which are like the two main from my understanding, and then you have your sprites. There seem to be like a lot of classic fantasy creatures in it. And one of the pieces of magic comes from Quicksilver. That's kind of what seems to like run this world. The Quicksilver makes you able to to travel into other worlds, basically. Yeah. And it's really dangerous to go through. So a lot of them have like pendants or magic that allows them to go through it. And there are these swords that are used to be imbued with the old magic, I guess. And the god swords, is that what they're called? Yeah, god swords. And they're all dead now. But Lorath, so Danya almost kills Kingfisher for abandoning when at the time we didn't know why he abandoned.
Just disappeared for 105 years.
And killed a ton of people.
Yeah.
And so when she sees him for the first time again, she goes to like start killing him. And Ceres, who is now this known alchemist, she like yells stop at the sword, and the sword like bursts into a million pieces.
Yeah.
Danya is pissed at her.
Yeah, because it's a fancy sword, one of a kind.
For 300 years, it was Danya's sword. And so she tries to figure out a way to repair Danya's sword. She does, and she makes a deal with this sword and the Quicksilver in it, saying the first person who bleeds on you will be yours. And then also made a deal that she would take one of their songs, and if that person was worthy, they would imbue it with the old magic again. I think that's kind of the gist of it.
Yeah. So they had to make a deal to forge the sword with the Quicksilver, otherwise it wasn't going to do anything for her.
Right. So she remakes the sword. Carrion, Kingfisher, and Lorath is with her. Danya's nowhere to be found. And Lorath sings the Quicksilver a song about Kingfisher at the Argent Gate. And they realized afterwards that they wouldn't be able to remember that song anymore. But only Ceres does, and that's when she starts to realize, like, oh my god, every time I make a deal to make one of these pendants for Kingfisher's army, I'm gonna have to keep, like, some sort of secret, and it's only gonna be mine, and I'm gonna be the keeper of all these secrets. But when she remade the sword, Lorath bled on it.
By accident?
By accident, and so it was hers, and I was just like, we were sitting there, and Daria hadn't quite got there yet, and I was just like, Danya's gonna be pissed!
Yeah, and she was.
Yeah, and then Carrion somehow got another sword, and at the time, again, we didn't really know why he was, like, deserving of a sword. What did Lorath name his? I couldn't say it.
I didn't even try. I think it had a weird eye, too, with, like, a little...
Avasith. And it, his sword, Avasith, has the power of Angel's Breath. And so then Carrion got his sword, and he named his sword Simon.
It was so good. Just Simon. And he was like, it looks like a Simon. And she was like, Ceres was like, sure, whatever, I don't care. I don't care enough.
It just made me, it just kind of reminded me of, like, Mortal Instruments. I was like, did you name your sword after Simon from Mortal Instruments? I'm sure that's not true, but I hope that's what I like to think.
I want that to be the truth.
Right?
I was also thinking about it because, like, at the end in the labyrinth, granted, this was late at night and I may not have read this properly, but, like, she goes through the Quicksilver and the voices were the twins that were goddesses.
Yes.
So I was like, has she just been striking these deals with these goddesses all this time?
Maybe.
And that's how you get the
Well, I thought it might have been the god of chaos that she'd been striking the deals with. But the twins maybe had, like, a say in it, because all three of them were there.
Yeah.
Because the god of chaos was their parents, and he seemed to be doing a lot of stuff for his two girls. So I feel like they would have had something to say about it for sure.
Yeah, because I was wondering if they're striking the deals with these girls, and they're being like, yes, Simon works for us.
Yeah, right? Whatever. Yeah, because the girls were very, like, childish, which was interesting for two goddesses that they worshipped.
Yeah, they were, like, preteen in nature.
Yeah, and being fathered by the god of chaos, which is a whole other thing.
Yeah, which I'm sure added a special layer of spice to
Yeah.
their personalities.
Well, because I always find it so interesting when fantasy books explore gods and they bring them in there, and the gods are not omnipotent. Oh my god, that word. Omnipotent. They're not all knowing. They're not all powerful. I think the best fantasy books explore that in the best way, where they have their limits. They're not maybe as immortal or like as mature as you would think that a god is, because it's all this challenge of religion. It's all this challenge of who you worship and things like that. It's kind of cool.
I also found that Callie did a really good job with the, like, not immortal, but very long-lived Fae
Yeah,
still being a bunch of dumbasses.
totally.
And that was, like, a lot of it, it seemed, was like, okay, you're growing up in warfare.
Yeah,
So, like, you don't build the same kind of social bonds and stuff. Like, you don't
right.
get to mature past, like, kill the next thing in sight.
Yeah, because I think she said that they stop at like 21, like they're fully aged at 21 or something.
Yeah. And then they just, like, coast from there
Yeah,
for a couple thousand years.
yeah.
But, like, they didn't act like it.
Nope.
None of them.
No.
Especially Carrion.
Yeah. Oh my god.
That was great.
Yeah, because Carrion's old, so we find out that he is the son of like the old king and queen,
Mm-hmm.
which is cool.
That was a fun twist.
Yeah.
I'll give her that one.
Yeah.
We still don't have a resolution on why Fisher brought him through the gate instead of the brother.
Yeah,
They
like
smelled the same or similar.
yeah, so it was I think I think it was explained. So my understanding, because at the very beginning, it was like, okay. So at the very beginning, Saris and Carrion have slept together at least once.
Yeah, and had a great time doing it.
Had a great time. Carrion was pretty obsessed with Saris, which we don't really know at this point, like what the motivations behind that were. But like he was obsessed with her, but he's also a slut.
Yeah.
And he's open.
So
about
was
that.
she.
Oh yeah,
They had a good time.
yeah, exactly. So when she breaks the deal with Kingfisher that she needs to go back to Zilverian to fetch her brother, and she will do whatever he says, basically, to help get his people back, like using the Quicksilver to travel between worlds. She says, okay, and he's like, I need something of Hayden's, her brother, to be able to locate him. So she gives him her blood so that he can like smell the blood. And he comes back with Carrion.
Yeah.
And so at first you're like, are they related? Is she gonna do this? Like, does she have the audacity to do this?
I really wanted her to.
Already slept together. You really wanted them to.
I just thought it would be so funny.
Right. But then later we find out, like, no, he smelled like you, like your perfume. And we're like, okay, that, like, still after...
It seems still weird because you took the blood.
Yeah, but here's the thing, because later we find out that Kingfisher and Saris are fated mates, and that he has this enhanced sense of smell.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I think what the lore is that he can still smell her perfume because she's a fated mate. And it had only been like a couple weeks or whatever. And that's
why he was
like the fated mate piece and the perfume of her was more powerful than the blood of Hayden or something.
Yeah, I guess you
would
also
really,
be the
I think
part.
you just really want her to have the audacity to make them related.
I just really think it'd be funny because now they're both Fae too, so like they could be like third or fourth cousins or something.
Yeah.
And then he could be like, oh no, it was because like there's a family relation here. It doesn't have to be close. But I just think it's so funny for an author to have like the balls to be like, no, it's kinda incesty.
Oh my god. Well, I guess like a lot of Fae culture, Fae history, if you will, in fantasy, do have a history of like incest.
It's all a little incesty.
Yeah.
Or she could have taken a lot more pieces from like City of Glass, Mortal Instruments, and
Yeah.
Gone with the incest trope a little bit. Just a little bit.
Now that I know how many books are based off of fan fiction, I'm so hyper aware of it.
I know, me too.
Well, because it, like, realistically it all is, but, like, I'm hyper aware of the things.
Anytime I see a book cover that has a tall blonde man and a short brown-haired curly-haired girl,
Yeah.
it's immediately Hermione fanfic.
Oh my god.
And I
That's
don't
so
care if
funny.
it actually was Hermione fanfic. I'm going to read it like it's Hermione fanfic. Because there's just only one place that combo comes from.
Yeah, you're right.
I pre-ordered a book based purely on that fact. Was the
That's
cover.
so funny.
It was some like magic thing too, so I was like, this is
Whatever.
definitely Hermione fanfic.
Oh my god, that's funny.
Purchased.
Yeah. I will say the book was very predictable, but again, I think this goes into my it had its recipe, it knew its audience, and that's why it was successful. So I'm not mad about the predictability of it.
No.
At least from the like we guessed fated mates 5 pages.
I mean, you got Faye, you got fated mates.
Yeah,
There's just no way around it.
because what was it? The first time that they had sex, also pretty good smut.
I mean, I wasn't mad at that either. I also I switched between the audio and the Kindle version.
Okay.
Love the narrators
Okay.
for one, and they were very entertaining. I liked them a lot. But even like listening to this smut, like it wasn't bad.
Okay, because I'm the type of person who skims over the smut. I don't know what it is, especially if I don't believe in the couple or I just didn't really like the book or something. I struggle with the smut. I actually liked this one. I think most of it is because I felt chemistry. I'm a sensitive girl. I need to feel something when it comes to sex. I don't have sex just for like fun. And yeah, I needed to feel something and I felt something between the two of these people, sort of, Faye, and I enjoyed it. I thought she did a good job.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I also appreciate the fact that again, it was like 50% of the way through was the first scene.
Yeah, and it
And it
wasn't
builds.
overbearing. So what Romantasy does wrong is it has too much smut in too much world building and chaos. Like, you set the scene for there to be chaos and war. We can't just have fucking everywhere.
The only books I've ever been like, because if you're doing like a hockey romance and you're screwing every other chapter, I don't care. I don't need you to build the world I live in. But so many fantasy books I've been like, please stop fucking and get to the problem. The world ending problem you're currently trying to stop. Go back to that.
And what a lot of, like, there's romantasy books that will have fucking in, like, really gross places that, like, take it out of it for me. Like, when they were riding on horseback,
Oh,
I
yeah,
was like,
that's so
I
funny.
swear to God, if they start riding on horseback for, like, 2 days, don't take a shower and start fucking, I'm gonna lose my shit. And they didn't, and I was very proud of that. I started to trust this book a lot, because I went in with a lot of distrust, I'll admit it.
Yeah.
But that was the point. I was like, oh, okay, she's aware. She knows that this would not be appropriate. Good job.
Yeah, or like even like post battle, you haven't had like a little wash down.
Yeah.
You're sweaty, you're covered in gross stuff. That sounds like a really quick way to get an infection.
Right.
I don't want to read about it.
Right. Well, and like they were serious at the times that they needed to be serious. Like, you know how I'm just gonna keep comparing this to Onyx Storm, I'm sorry. But whenever Violet saw Xaden, regardless of how serious it was going on, it was like, oh my god, he looks so good. Oh my god, what does he do to my body? Like, she wasn't focused on that the whole time. She had a personality. She had priorities. She was worried about her brother. She was, like, worried about making sure that Everlane was okay when she got taken by the vampires. Like, her entire inner dialogue wasn't just Kingfisher, Kingfisher, Kingfisher. It was like, okay, I have priorities. I have a world I want to save. And also, what are these feelings that I'm having for this person who I kind of hated 2 weeks ago? I'm very confused. Like, it made sense.
Yeah, and even their interactions, like when they did finally have sex, were still like, well, that happened, but like I got shit to do
Right.
afterwards. So they were very focused on like the things they had to get done. Their relationship wasn't at the forefront of it the whole time, which I
Yeah.
thought was really nice. And then her internal dialogue about all of it wasn't insufferable.
Yeah. And then when they did have sex, when they did like actually have intimacy, that was what it was focused on. Like you could tell that they got each other out of the troubles of the world in a really appropriate way. And it was like, oh, I kissed him, and then everything fell apart. Like all the floors and the walls, and this is where my atmospheric brain goes, but it was like everything didn't matter for a second, and then when they stopped, they were like, okay, everything does matter. It was very well done in the terms like you had the really good chemistry while you were doing it, and then oh my god, back to reality, we have problems to fix, I can't focus on this right now. Or like right before their night of like the day of the battle, when they had their last night together and she was like really mad at him, kind of rightfully so, I supported the whole situation, but she was like, okay, this is not the time to focus on that, let's have this last night. And then he left and it was like, okay, we got shit to do. Like they were focused.
Yeah, they moved the plot along still at a pace that was reasonable while still having romance in the book, which was really nice.
Yeah.
I really thought it was funny to keep things serious that Carrion just like slept through that big battle scene.
Yeah.
He was just passed out in the forge and wasn't present for the chaos.
And that didn't feel forced either. Like I think we're with a lot of these types of things where they're like, okay, I gotta get like as an author, I think like, okay, this author had to get Carrion out of the story for a little bit. How am I gonna do that? They didn't make anything happen for him to just be pulled away, and it was this really obvious pull Carrion away from the story. It was chronological and it made sense, and it didn't make me think, it didn't pull me out of the story and think, oh, how did the author do this? I really hate when that happens.
Yeah.
So I wasn't thinking that. I was just like, oh yeah, Carrion, he was sleeping. Great, bye. Like they
stayed up for 15 hours straight in a forge doing hard work and he passed out.
Yeah, it kept me in the story. I didn't get out of it. I actually had a really good time with it.
One thing I noticed, because I'm attempting to write, is she suffers from the same thing that I think almost everyone does when you put familiars or pets into stories, and that's keeping track of them. Yeah. It's hard.
That's why I don't play a druid, or I don't have a pet in my D&D.
Yeah. Because all the time, I'd be like, because the fox thing is fucking cute.
Yes. Oh my god,
look up fan art for Kingfisher and the fox.
Oh, it's so cute.
Adorable. But I kept being like, where is it? What's it doing? I just want to know where the fox is. And it's the same problem, like, again, I was exclusively reading Harry Potter fanfic, but a lot of them have, like, a familiar or a pet or something. Yeah. And very few people do it well enough where I'm like, it's part of the story, it's its own character. But, like, I find a lot of people, like, yeah, they'll put it in and they'll be like, yeah, it's here. But it's only conveniently here when they're, like, important to the plot. And then otherwise they're just, like, mysteriously gone. Yeah. And I feel like Onyx just kept disappearing.
Yeah, he kept disappearing, or they kept having to be like, okay, you take Onyx. Onyx has to stay here. Fuck, we can't take Onyx. Like, actually, I have a D&D campaign where this became a problem because I had a druid in the campaign. I didn't play a druid. And we ended up with, like, a reindeer to pull our carts. And every city we went to, we're like, okay, let's go into this shop. And our DM would be like, what are you doing with the fucking reindeer? And I'm like, God, for God's sakes. And then, like, my cousin who was playing with the reindeer, she was like, I'll stay here. I'm like, yeah, you do that, bye. And I almost got killed, too, because she was trying to save fish one time in a fish tank. I was so mad. So, yeah, they're inconvenient. They're hard to keep track of, and they're hard to keep in the story, especially when it's a fox who's, like, as of right now, for what we know, is pretty useless in battle. He's just cute.
He's just adorable. Yeah. He just makes Fisher a cute little puppy dad. Yeah. He doesn't want to be puppy dad.
I know. Such a good trope, though.
It's one of my favorites, is the reluctant pet dad.
That was actually one of the good things I can say about Fourth Wing. Taryn is like that. He's like, I am now in charge of this girl who can't take care of herself, and I didn't want this, but now I am here.
I'm here, and I'm keeping this thing alive. Yeah. Unfortunately for me. Yeah. And the other tiny dragon thing that also does not want to keep itself alive.
Yes. Love that trope.
Yeah. So good. But I think that was one of the things that bothered me when I was reading it, was like, she could not keep track of that fox. No. And it's hard. Like, yeah. I'm constantly going back and editing my own writing to be like, where the fuck is the snake? Where did I leave the snake? Who has the snake? Right. Where was the last scene with the snake?
That can't be easy.
Yeah, because I'm like, okay, you're like, they're having this, like, intimate moment, but, like, the snake is here somewhere. Yeah. Where is it?
Yeah. Well, even, like, one of my favorite D&D campaigns, the one that Vox Machina is based on.
Mm-hmm.
One of the characters, she has like a giant bear friend,
Yeah.
and that thing becomes a problem. Like, he can't fit anywhere. He like, they have to leave him behind, and then they finish like their little fight, and they're like, the bear's like way behind us. We gotta, how do we?
We need to get the bear, but like the bear's really far.
Yeah, it's hard to keep track of.
So like, kudos to authors who can do it. I think Callie did not do a great job with the familiar / pet. I don't know what the vibe is just yet with that thing, and I don't need to know yet. There's more books.
Yeah.
But hopefully she figures it out for the next one, because I would like more of the fox.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the ending really quickly, because what did you think of the ending?
I was shocked that's where she went with the ending.
Me too.
Which, like, kudos to her, because I was like, oh, it's going to end when she, like, finds Fisher. There's going to be people there or whatever. And then next book, cliffhanger.
I really thought that it was going to end with, like, them going through the portal or something to there, because it was, like, really close to the ending, which I thought would have been, like, not such a good ending. But I thought it was very action-packed, this whole labyrinth that added some lore to what Kingfisher had to do and why he had left all of the people, because he was forced into a deal, basically, where, like, the coin would flip, and then once it landed, it would either be feathers or the other, heads or tails, but in fantasy version.
Leaf or something?
Yeah, leaves and feathers or whatever. And then, like, whatever happened, it would resolve the situation he was in. But then, instead of letting the coin fall, Malcolm, the big bad guy, grabbed it out of the air and never let it touch the ground. And so they've all just been, like, sitting in the ethereal world or whatever until...
Yeah, figured out.
Yeah. So the ending was resolving that situation, and we find that Bellicon and Madra are Malcolm's siblings, and they've all been working together to take over all of the worlds or whatever.
Or they're 2 worlds?
2 worlds? Yeah, I guess so.
Because, like, actually, something I thought was ballsy and interesting was the concept of they understood planets and solar systems and the galaxy and the universe, and having, like, other realms were literally other planets.
Yes.
That were populated, but she didn't have the opportunity to dive into that further.
Right.
And I'm curious, again, all writing fanfic, if she's pulling that from Brandon Sanderson or from SJM, or both. Because they both have that concept.
Yeah. The concept in SJM, though, like, we are part of them learning about the different worlds.
Yeah.
Right? Because on the one planet with Akatar, they just know that there's, like, a border between the humans and the Fae. But they didn't, like, we went through those stories learning the process. In, like, Crescent City, we were basically able to see that they were able to transport, kind of thing. Like, we were part of that learning for them.
Yes.
Whereas in this one, they're already aware of it.
Yeah. I just thought it was interesting to be like, are you gonna do other, like, how far are we going with these other planets? How are they gonna play into this? What's gonna happen? Are there other people, realms? Are you gonna start pulling? Because the Quicksilver is how you get from one to the other. And because of the meddling on this one planet, none of them can talk.
Yeah.
But, like, technically there's infinite realms.
Right. Yeah. So, like, what is their goals? Yeah.
So, like,
well, Malcolm's dead now.
Yes.
Which is nice. But Bellicon and Madra aren't. And, like, so Heron is a Fae, to my understanding. So does that mean, like, all of Madra's soldiers and stuff are all Fae? I thought
the triumvirate, or whatever the fuck it was called, was, like, one Fae, one vampire, one human.
Oh,
so I think her guards are human, but via, like, maybe, like, the elixirs that they mentioned in that one story.
Right.
For the mother situation.
Yeah.
That they were just, like, they were given longevity somehow.
Yeah, okay, maybe that makes more sense.
Because otherwise the whole triumvirate thing seems really weird.
I don't think we have enough information on the triumvirate.
Yeah, or how that works. Because I was thinking, like, well, if you have, like, Kingfisher and then human girl and then you turned what's his carrier into, like, a vampire, you'd have a new triumvirate you can fuck around with. But they didn't do that, which is fine.
Is Everlane still a vampire, though? Because we don't really know about that. Because she was getting it drained
I don't think
by the
so.
witch, but we didn't get resolution with that.
Yeah, there wasn't anything concrete like, oh no, she's not a vampire anymore. But
Yeah.
they talked about it a lot that she wasn't going to be one.
Yeah, which in my I don't know. I didn't get confirmation. I don't trust it until I get confirmation.
That's fair.
Yeah. Especially with these things. And then we have the God of Chaos, who at the very end gave us kind of a vague understanding of the fact that he was trying to keep Kingfisher and Ceres apart, that they were always mates. And he was changing the world because she was originally supposed to be Fae. She was supposed to be born as Fae, and that's why his mother had prophesized that she was going to be Fae. And the God of Chaos, I can't remember what his name, I think it started with a Z.
Yeah, I don't.
He changed all of the worlds so that they'd never be together, but basically they always ended up together. And because they have like the god mate, the god tattoos or whatever.
God Bond?
God bond, yeah. They're gonna one of them's gonna die. It ends in tragedy every time in these stories. Maybe the destruction. I don't know exactly what the God of Chaos was trying to prevent.
Yeah, and I don't think we were supposed to know exactly.
Okay.
He's just like, well, now I'm screwed because you two figured it out. So,
Yeah.
like, I guess I'll help.
Yeah, because what this did a really good job of in the first book, and what I think a lot of first books really struggle with, is it's a full story. You know what I mean? Like, we established that Malcolm was the villain.
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm died, and the souls of all the people that Kingfisher had abandoned or whatever, they were able to go off in peace. Like, this was all resolved. The coin situation resolved.
Yeah, the big question of, like, where has this dude been for 100 years?
Yeah, solved. Kingfisher is now getting treatment to reduce the amount of Quicksilver that's in him and try to like reduce his madness and all of those things. So like we've got a whole story. They're falling in love happily ever after, whatever. But now we have this bigger situation where there's this like sort of prophecy thing that Kingfisher and Ceres together is a bad thing, and there's still Bellicon and Madra who had escaped the whole situation. So they set us up for further books, but it was a complete book with satisfaction at the end. I thought she did a really good job there.
Yeah, I did like that. I think that's one of my big things with a lot of ways that people write is like, yes, you got to set up your next story, you got to have overarching plot lines, but like, you can resolve things in each book. Like, things can come to a head.
Because that's what I was worried about. I was worried about like major cliffhanger that resolved nothing, that gave us no answers. Like, that's not a book.
Yeah.
And if you can't do that in 600 pages, you shouldn't, like, that shouldn't be the ending of it.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that's the hard part, and like what's so goddamn annoying about Fourth Wing and the Imperium series is like,
It didn't give us any
Nothing-
answers. It just,
more questions. I don't want more questions. I want some answers along the way.
yes.
Some big answers.
Right. Like, I want to have satisfaction when I'm done reading a book, and I didn't get that with Onyx Storm, especially.
Again, I think the fallacy of this one is like, build out a plot, put it on paper or something where you can see it all.
Do some planning.
Don't just like don't let the words just come out on their own, because they're going to take you weird places that you weren't planning on, and then you got to do weird shit and break your own rules to get back to the story.
Yeah, this one, like the magic system, it was simple, it was easy to follow, which is really important when you're trying to do romantasy, because, like, let's be real, we're trying to read some trashy drama with a little bit of fun magic. Like, that's what we're looking for here. Yeah. I'm not looking for a big, complicated magic system where I have to map out all my notes and, like, understand each rule, and if you try to do too much, it's going to ruin your book.
Yeah, because then you're going to also try to prioritize the romance and the tension and the building. And I think a lot of authors try to do too much.
Yeah. One thing I'm a little bit worried about, and I think I'm worried about it because Fourth Wing did it and it's not working out for me, is you've got fated mates in the first book. I'm a little worried about it because Xaden and Violet, after 3 books, insufferable. I hate them. And you know what I mean? Like, we were really hoping that they wouldn't be Endgame.
I want them not to be Endgame so bad. so bad. I want Throne of Glass. I want the new dude to come in and be so much better and make her
Yeah.
a better person because she's a shit human being right now.
Yeah. Like, ACOTAR waited until the second book at a 5. Well, I guess there will be a 6, but they are going with different characters because Feyre and
Reese.
Reese, can't even remember.
You're thinking
Had
Bryn
like
Dannon, who is
they
a
had finished
superior
their love story after 3 books, and they stopped. She stopped writing, rightfully so. Throne of Glass Endgame didn't happen till book 4, I believe.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm worried.
I think the way you do fated mates and longevity is the whole mate thing either becomes a huge plot point in the it's required to make XYZ happen,
Yeah.
or you get through the romance portion of it and you focus really heavily on your story after that.
And I'd be okay with that. I'd also be okay, like, I think Renfis and Everlane have something going on. Because Renfis was really destroyed when they took Everlane.
Oh, yeah.
So I think something's going on there. So maybe you do a book like they did with ACOTAR with Cassian and Nesta.
Yeah.
And just have a book of, like, other 2 people while the story still continues. I would be okay with them doing different perspectives, like different POVs.
Yep.
Or you have to focus only on the story.
I kind of hope she brings in more point of view for the
Me
next
too.
book. Not that, like, her main character is great as far as female main characters go. She's not super annoying to be in the head of. But I just really like having more perspectives, more big picture.
My favorite fantasy books are 2 to 6 POVs.
Yeah.
For me, more the better. You have a limit
Yeah, I
for
max
how
out
many you
around
want to follow.
4.
Yeah.
4 is a nice number for me.
But I definitely need more. And I think that's the first person gets to me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I did write notes on this, though. For a first person, I think, one, the way she writes the first person is really different from the way Yaros writes it.
Yeah.
There's a lot more, or not, sorry, a lot less of the I and me in this, and a lot more of, like, this is what is happening around me.
Yeah.
It's not, like, it's a first person that's not focused on the person.
Right.
And then I still think one of the biggest faults of first person is it does a lot of tell, so much tell, and no show.
Yep. Yeah, the atmosphere, like the setting and the
Yeah.
world building was so much different with this one.
Like, she was still able to
It wasn't
write in first person
whiny.
and not explain every single detail of every single thing that was happening.
Yeah.
In a, like, this is my perspective of this billion things that are currently occurring, and then move on.
Yeah, like, listen, I'm all good. I'm all supportive of sharing our feelings, but when we're in the head of, like, a 19 or 20-year-old girl who has a lot of feelings, and most of them are, like,
Horny.
jealousy and horny and whiny and complainy, I don't want to be there for 5 books. It's not a. I remember my head and how that was to be in when I was 18, and I don't want to relive that.
No, and I like that the main character in this one was a little bit older at 24.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was nice. I
That
feel like you
was
could have made her
great.
even
I
older.
think, yeah, that was great. Like, mid to late 20s, I think we need to be writing more fantasy novels with that.
Especially because, like, the demographic of people reading this is like 30s.
It's all the people who grew up with Jersey Shore. That's what you have to understand.
Right?
We grew up watching Jersey Shore and the Real Housewives.
Yeah.
That was our trash TV. That's who's reading this. Get it.
Yeah. We need more of that. So I feel like if you write it more with characters from, like, 25 into, like, even 35.
Yeah.
You're gonna have people in the brain of someone they can relate to better for things like this that also has smut. Because that's my biggest thing with Iron Flame, Onyx Storm, whatever.
Yeah.
It should have been pure YA, gotten rid of the smut, because those characters are too immature to have sex.
Yes.
And it's fucking annoying.
Yes.
But in this, they're mature enough to have sex. And they're having reasonable sex.
Right. It's good sex.
Yeah.
It's hot.
Yeah.
It was hot. I liked it.
It was good sex.
Yeah.
So I was like, I like this more because it makes sense. And
Yeah.
they're adults, and I'm an adult, and I'm reading it, and
Right.
it's romantasy, and it's an adult book.
Yeah.
Whereas, like,
and they're making adult decisions. They're like, hey, I think this guy's hot. I want to be with him, but we got shit going on, and I
he's kind
have
of
to
a
go deal with that. And he sucks. And I'm like, she was very, like, I felt very empowered when I was reading it. She was like, no, I'm not going to do this. You're being an asshole. And it wasn't like until she developed that trust and saw more of him that she actually was like, okay, no, this is different than I thought that this was. And there were things that actually changed it to make sense. And like when she realized he was her fated mate and she was actually mad at him because he was actually being a dick and how he went about it, even though he didn't have control over it. Like, she didn't make excuses for him, and I liked that.
Yeah, I also really like that there was the distinct moments where she was like, I'm giving you trust, knowing that, like, it'd be really easy for you to ruin this right now. Like,
and if you do, I will walk away.
Yeah, like, she wasn't going to take it if he did.
Yeah.
Which I liked.
Yeah, because she really, at the very end there, where she was like, you can command me to stay here.
But I will never forgive you.
But I will never, or like when she was dying, I think it was.
Something like that.
Yeah, because she was dying and he was able to make her fae? But the blood bond that Lorath has with him.
Yeah,
he was able to do that, and she was like, I do not want to be blood bound to you, and if you force me to do this, I'll never forgive you.
Yeah.
And so he made a different decision, and he made the right one.
Hopefully.
I think that's how it ended. So I don't think we know for sure.
We'll find out.
But he listened to her.
Yeah.
But, like, she really, like, I believe about Saris that she would have upheld that. I don't think she would have ever forgave him, and I like that about her. I think she has integrity as a character, which Violet very much did not.
Yeah, and she was willing to, like, tell him no and have him held accountable to that. And he was also willing to be told no and stick to that, like, respect her choices.
Yeah.
After, they had that little not so much moment.
Can we talk about the name Kingfisher?
Yeah.
That was the one thing. I don't like the name Kingfisher.
Did they explain where it came from at any point?
Well, they had one piece that kind of intrigued me and gave me hope here, that they all had real names, and that when they did their oath to, like, never tell lies and stuff, that they were able to, like, create their own name or something. Like, I think they all have real names.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Renfis and Lorath and Kingfisher and even Everlane are their real names, and I am eager to hear what Kingfisher's real name is and not have Kingfisher as a name anymore.
Yeah.
It's not doing it for me.
And I guess I would really, like, explain why, because, like, it's a bird.
Right.
But why are we named after a bird? A fishing bird.
I know.
It's a weird name, and I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't think she ever explained why he's actually, like, named Kingfisher.
Yeah, and then, like, his nickname was Fisher, and I was like, okay. Because the first time I heard his name, I was listening to the audiobook. I had to switch back to... This was actually the reason I switched to physical only. Because the first time I heard his name, it was listening to the audiobook, and I just heard Kingfisher, and I was like, well, what does that mean? Because I didn't even know it was a bird. But, like, I was like, Kingfisher? Like, did he fish for king? I was like, I sound stupid right now, but when I heard that, I was like, what are you talking about? And then when I started reading it again, I was like, oh, wait, that's just his name? And then that's why I restarted this book. Because I was so confused, because I was like, oh, this had to come from somewhere. This can't just be his name. And then I reread it, and I was like, oh, no, this is just his name.
And it's weird, too, because the rest of the names are cool.
Yeah.
I like the rest of the names.
I know. Why are you making your hot main character
Kingfisher?
Yeah.
When you have, like, Lorath
and Renfis and Everlane.
Even Carrion's a fun name.
I know. Karen is better.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Is Heron a bird name?
No.
Because Heron was the guard of Madra. So. No, it's not. We're fine.
But yeah. I know, it's a weird name. And I was like, it's not a fun name.
No, I don't know about that. I'm curious. I hope that there's more to his name.
Yeah. 'Cause there's gotta, like, explain to me why it's his name. Maybe I'll like it if there's a good reason.
Yeah.
Maybe it's got a cool backstory on it.
There better be.
But yeah.
Yeah. I'm interested to see what they do with this magic system, and I'm interested to see Ceres's whole thing. Like, she's a vampire now, but an alchemist vampire
And a fae.
and a fae.
Yeah. Or does she still get to be an alchemist and a vampire fae?
Right? Because she's very, like... Because right up until the end, she was described as a human, but she just has, like, fae blood somewhere.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't have her pointy ears or anything yet.
Well, she has them now.
Oh, she did get them at the end.
Yeah, because they, like, brought out, like, a mirror or something, and they're like, you should probably see this.
Oh. Does that mean she's immortal now? Yes, because she's a vampire.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so it is very ACOTAR-y. Like, the first book was very... Like, she got stolen from her homeland. She found this guy who's a fated mate, and when she found out, it was from, like, some third-party person who told her information about them being, like, the Suriel told Feyre, and then she was really mad at him. And then they fucked.
It was mostly okay. And there's the weird out of the mountain moment.
And then she ends with becoming a fae. So it was like, the plot points are there, but it followed the recipe. It was simple enough to follow. It was really fun. I think it had enough originality for me to still, like, feel like I was in a different place. I actually thought it was better than ACOTAR.
Yeah. I hate Feyre with a burning passion.
Yeah.
So anything that's not her is great.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah. Well, Sarah's just has a brain and critical thinking skills and...
a personality.
Yeah. She's not, like, whiny stubborn. She's logically stubborn.
Yeah, she's like, this is not a good idea.
Right.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Until someone tells me it is a good idea.
Yeah.
And then maybe I'll do it.
Yeah. I'm excited. I'm excited for book 2.
Yes, that one is November?
November. I have my theories. Renfis and Everlane have something going on. Carrion and Danya, for sure. I want to see them get together. Oh, we didn't talk about my issues with Danya.
Oh, she is bad.
I have some issues with Danya. That's actually one of my major issues with this book.
Yeah, we talked about the female.
I just think, okay. So you have a group of guys who are, like, all, you know, their world is revolving around Ceres, who has this, like, prophecy or something associated with her, and she has the ability to save them. And then you have this overly overt bitch who's, like, sassy, and she's overly emotional, and she's so overly emotional that I think she's a plot tool to, like, make Ceres look better or look more desirable.
Yeah, because, like, these are the other options you have available.
Yeah, and it didn't sit right with me.
I also didn't like that there just, like, weren't any female characters for most of the book other than kind of Danya, who was a bitch. Like, you had Everlane in the beginning.
Yeah, and then you had the healer.
Chapters. And then, but, like, the healer was never there until the end.
Right, like, there's no main characters, and then the one other female, like, character that you have who's actively fighting and who's supposed to be a strong female character is just, like, this over-emotional, stereotypical
whiny
bitch. Like, you could make her this really, like, empowering, strong female lead who is, like, around a group of strong guys and also fighting and things like that, and she's
still
just
feminine and, like,
yeah, I think
a girl.
Now the only caveat that I'm going to have to that is I think that she does have potential, because I think, like, Nesta, who became my favorite character, Nesta was that character in ACOTAR. I'm comparing a lot to ACOTAR because it basically is just ACOTAR in a different font. But I think she has potential. I just really hope that Callie Hart gives her the moment that she deserves.
Or someone.
Yeah.
Like, there needs to be another woman in this book, because right now it's basically just her. Unless, like, you bring Everlane in a little bit more, have her be a more central character in the next one.
Yeah.
But, yeah, this one does fall into that unfortunate, like, boys club.
Yeah.
With, like, your one strong female.
Yeah. I didn't like how they portrayed Danya, and I think Danya has more potential to be a good character It just give her more depth. Like, I don't want it to be a character development where, like, oh my gosh, she stopped being emotional. Like, give her depth as to why she is the way that she is.
Yeah, backstory.
Yeah, and like
Something.
make her look better, because she's definitely better than she's being portrayed.
Yeah, she wouldn't be there if she wasn't,
No,
ideally.
right? I think she was portrayed really poorly, so I hope there was a reason for it. That's my only thing.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it was like, it was one of the things I noticed when reading. I was like, there are no women here, but like you seem to have women warriors, but so far all I've met is a bunch of dudes.
Yeah, and a bitchy one who's overly emotional and who's ruining everything and who everybody's mad at all the time. Like, I don't buy it.
Yeah, even the sprites that they hung out with were
Yeah,
male,
I know.
except for the ones jerking off that one dude in the bathtub.
Yeah, Carrion had a good time with them.
Carrion was just there for good times and vibes, and
Oh
I
my
was
God.
also there with him.
Yeah, he's great. He's great. I'm excited for the next one.
Me too. I'm sad we have to wait till November.
I know. And then how long? I don't know how many books there are going to be in the series.
Here's hoping for a trilogy,
Hoping for a
as per
trilogy.
usual.
Okay, Quicksilver planned books. Okay. Okay, it's the Brimstone. Oh, Brimstone is the second book. It is currently a sequel. This debut. It was originally planned to release the second book in October 2024, but it got pushed back. I actually kind of like that, because that would have been like a year, just over a year, and I don't trust that after what happened with Fourth Wing.
Yeah, it's probably too because she got picked up for traditional publishing in, I think it's like September, August. Around
Oh,
then, so they probably had her push the release date for the next book until they could do the full publishing
got it.
song and dance for it. Because I don't think you can see it on screen, but I do have the indie cover that I had to order from the US on Amazon because they happened to have stock in it at one point
Nice.
for $24.
You are going to be happy. Hart intends to write 3 books in this series.
Thank fuck.
Hit us with those trilogies. That actually makes me feel a little bit better in terms of the Fated Mates situation happening in book 1.
Yeah, again.
Because I think you can get 3 books out of it.
Yeah, and I really hope that she doesn't do the cash grab, or that her publisher doesn't force her to do the cash grab and write 5 books for this.
If they've learned anything from Onyx Storm, I hope that's that.
Yeah, that's a bad idea.
Yeah. All right, well, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I'm happy with this one. This was a great read. It didn't pain me at all.
No, it brought me back a lot of trust with the romantasy genre.
You know, we'll have to see if we can hunt down some good ones.
Yeah.
But our next episode is technically romantasy.
It is.
There's a lot of romantasy this year.
I have embarked on the Zodiac Academy journey, and we're going to be doing some really in-depth play-by-play summaries of that book.
Buckle up. Those will probably be a couple hours long.
We got a cork board involved.
A 3x4 foot corkboard. There's gonna be some discussion. It's gonna be a fun time. Yeah.
It's going to be something, that's for sure. Stay tuned.
Gonna live through every fantasy trope known to man.
Well, hey, thanks so much for listening. Please give us a like, thumbs up, comment on our YouTube channels. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, Goodreads, wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much for being here.
Bye.